Okay, and we are back live in PlayStation's E3 2012 booth. This is the last day of the show, and we saved the best for last. One game I've been very excited to check out here, Lost Planet 3. We are here with Matt Sophos, who is the game director, to check out the third entry in the series, which is actually a prequel, right?
It is.
Tell me about the setup here and what's different from Lost Planet 2.
Well, in Lost Planet 3, we are calling this kind of the return to extreme conditions. In the first couple games, the first game especially, was this kind of icy, snowy planet where this is what people remember about the franchise. Whenever you ask people about Lost Planet, that's what they remember. That's what they remember. What we wanted to do was go back to that. We wanted to bring people back to what they really remembered and loved about the franchise. We're telling a very compelling, single-player focused narrative with a character named Jim Payton, who's a family man, takes care of his wife and kid back home. He's accepted a contract on EDN3, the planet we go to in Lost Planet, so we go to EDN3 to take care of his wife and kid back home. Yeah.
Excellent. So, we were talking a little bit before the show here, and it sounds like the scale of the game is a little bit different. It's both bigger and smaller in some ways. Tell me about that. Tell me about the shift in pacing between different parts of the game here.
Right. Well, as gamers ourselves, we wanted to make sure that we crafted an experience that didn't just have one kind of note all the way through it. So we crafted this kind of experience that has all the big moments that you expect from Lost Planet, big open vistas where you're fighting huge creatures on foot. But then we have smaller, more quiet moments, interior sections that are a little bit more suspenseful.
And let's start checking out the game now. Let's cut to some gameplay so we can actually start seeing the game in action here. So here we are.
Yep.
We're on the surface of the planet. Here we are. We have an Acrid, obviously, and it's a different kind of Acrid. Tell me about how you're approaching the Acrid in here in Lost Planet 3.
Yeah, this is an Acrid called the Pack Hunter. One of the things we wanted to make sure to do was vary up our creature designs. In the previous Lost Planets, they were very focused on insectoid-type creatures, creatures that have an immediate sense of icky, right? And what we wanted to do was kind of create an ecology for the world that had one creature that would eat another creature that would all eat Jim, essentially. And this is one of those creatures that's more mammalian instead of pure insectoid.
Now here we are. This is sort of like the Vital Suit from the last game.
That's right.
But talk about sort of the difference here and what this thing actually does. This is more of a mining industrial sort of rig.
Yeah, since we're going prequel to the previous events of the franchise, the Vital Suits, which people really know from the previous games, they're kind of a little bit bigger than the size of a human, and they're loaded down with weapons. They're more military use. We're like many, many years before the events of that, and we figured that a precursor to any military use would be a civilian use. And so we created the utility rig here, which is this giant kind of 7-meter tall piece of construction equipment. It's Jim's personal property. It came to the planet ahead of him in anticipation of him. And it's his home away from home. It's his kind of rig. It's his truck, right? So he uses it to fight creatures and actually do construction jobs around the base. And he improvises the uses of construction equipment in combat against big and small creatures.
Right. So now tell me a little bit. It switches to first person when you're in the utility rig.
Yes, it does.
Tell me a bit about how the combat works there.
Well, as you can see from you'll see a little bit later when he's shooting the ice off of it. The utility rig has a drill and a claw on it. And you'll get upgrades. You can buy upgrades and things like that a little bit later. But it's a first person and it's melee. Like that? Is that right? It's first person, it's melee combat. The previous games, it was all stayed in third person. We have the third person shooting. We wanted to keep that as core to the game, just like the other games in the franchise. When you're in the rig, you're grabbing creatures, you're ripping arms off, you're drilling into them with the claws, and then you'll use other tools as well.
Oh, cool. So here we go. We're going to hop into utility rig here. And here you can see the first-person view. Now, this is obviously different than how the last games in the series have handled this. And what made you sort of take this approach here to the utility rig? I mean, this is radically different.
It is. Well, you can actually see here that creatures that were a bit of a tough fight on foot become absolutely nothing to the rig. You can just crush it, just make them explode, essentially.
Oh, sweet. Oh, man.
But the approach we took is we wanted to make the player feel really powerful against creatures that were a tough fight for them. Other creatures that are almost a semi-boss, a mini-boss, or even a full boss are things that are more of a fair fight in the rig.
So in terms of exploration and things like that, is this just like pure combat, or is there going to be some hunting and scavenging as well?
No, it's we've gone very non-linear. I'm not going to say that we're open world. We're not like Skyrim or anything like that. But we have what we call a hub and spoke kind of system, where you have these big areas that you can explore. You have main missions, and then you can pick up optional missions, and then there will also be areas that you kind of discover off the beaten path altogether.
Oh yeah, so this obviously the world here looks different than it did in the other games. It's a prequel, but it looks more alien. It looks less sort of like, I think we were sort of comparing it a little bit to Antarctica originally in the other titles, but or especially in the first game, obviously, because that's where it was a snow game. The second game was jungle. What was the inspiration behind making it sort of this more ice encrusted world versus sort of blizzards?
Well, we were really conscious whenever we were doing the art direction for this game. We wanted to make sure that the world felt like a place that couldn't exist on Earth. That's reflected in the big kind of ice spires you saw, and it's reflected in kind of these weather patterns. Like at the beginning of this demo, you saw the rig was all frozen over. It got flash frozen from a storm. We really wanted the player to feel like this is an area that is sometimes familiar, but completely alien in somewhere that wouldn't exist on Earth at all.
Now tell me a little bit about the weapons here. Would you say they're a little more grounded in sort of reality than maybe we had seen in Lost Planet 2?
Yes, they're kind of more gunpowder based. We have kind of a breadth of weapons that the player can essentially buy from the store and upgrade and do all these things to. They definitely start as more gunpowder based. They're grounded in realism. Jim even has a weapon that is an heirloom weapon that he comes from Earth with, that he brings with him. So we wanted to make sure to keep that kind of connection to his family and everything that this game is about.
Got it. So now here's one of Lost Planet's sort of signature big boss battles. Yeah. Tell me about, like, what are we trying to do? You're trying to shoot the weak spots, obviously. That's familiar.
Yeah, that's a big part of the franchise, right? So you've got like these big orange cores, grenade in the mouth, always effective. And this is a creature that, like, it's one of those kind of boss creatures that can be tough on foot, and eventually you'll get to fight it in the rig as well. These are the creatures that, like, people these are the creatures that people really remember. And they're obviously a huge part of our game as well.
Excellent. So is there going to be a multiplayer offering? We're seeing a lot of single player here, of course, but are you guys thinking about multiplayer?
We do have multiplayer. It's a separate mode. We're not really talking about it right now. We'll be giving more information about multiplayer in the coming months.
Got it.
But the main focus of this demo and what we're talking about is this very kind of intense and intimate story of Jim Payton.
Right, and one reason I ask is Lost Planet 2 so tied to 4-player co-op.
Yes.
I mean, that really was the way to play that game. And we're seeing a single-player game here. I mean, and Lost Planet 2 was actually very hard to get through the game on your own. It was a game that definitely demanded, like, co-op partners. So not so here. Looks like you're doing just fine, just with one guy. But so we've killed the giant creature here. So how does thermal energy tie into this? Because that's obviously something that's been a huge part of the series.
Well, in thermal energy for the previous games, they were it was things that you had to have to stay alive, essentially. In our games, we're using thermal energy. It's kind of the core reason why Jim and other miners from the group the colonization attempt, they're here for thermal energy. They believe it's something that can make a problem back at home, this energy crisis, something that they can deal with. One of the things that he's about to do right here is plant a thermal post. There's thermal energy in the ground as well as in the creatures, and thermal energy is something that, like, becomes a currency for our game. As Jim collects things, he gets a cut of it, and then he uses that to buy equipment on the base.
Okay, so it's more of a currency, like you said, less of a sort of resource that you need to keep this meter topped off.
Yes, absolutely.
I got it. Yeah. Okay.
You can see when a thermal post is planted, sometimes there's a huge release of heat and energy.
Oh, interesting.
And
look at that.
And the area around it completely melted.
Oh, interesting.
One of the things about the game is that when Jim gets to the planet, he's told that he's one of the first people to ever be on this planet, aside from the crew that he came with. This kind of shows that is not the case. So a big part of our story is uncovering the mystery of who was here before you.
Yeah, very interesting. So this looks like some sort of facility here, trapped in the ice. You've just melted away the ice. And if I had to take a guess, I'd say this is where the game's going to get a little bit more suspenseful.
It is.
You're going to show off a little bit of the variety that you've been talking about here.
Yeah, we showed a little bit of the fighting in the open space, although it was a foggy environment, but we have kind of big sweeping sunlit vistas as well. But yes, this is part of that kind of that scary experience.
Now, one thing I didn't see was I haven't seen grappling hooks and the like yet. Is that still in the game, or are you treating? Oh, you're okay.
Grappling hooks are still in there. Actually, it happened while we were talking about something else. He used it to get. You can both grapple up and rappel down different areas. It's not used in exactly the same way. To be a little bit more grounded, we don't have the kind of like firing out and grappling anywhere.
Got it.
But you do still use the grappling hook. It's a big part of it.
Now, the story, is this like sort of indicative of how the story is going to be told in Lost Planet 3? Sort of these comm channels here.
Yeah. Well, this right here is this is covering a loading screen basically.
Okay.
It's you're making games. You're going to have loads in a lot of most of the time. And what we wanted to do is take the opportunity, instead of just having kind of a graphic that's like spinning, using HUD elements and things like that, and be able to tell a little bit of story during the loads as well.
Okay, cool.
That was actually a message back home to his wife, Grace.
Got it.
You'll be getting a lot of extra stuff, a lot of extra things inferred from those too.
And you were saying that this is definitely a story of Jin as the lead character.
Jim, yeah.
And this is very much his story. We're going to learn a lot more about him as a character than we maybe have from some of the prior Lost Planet games.
That's true. Yes. This is very much Jim's story and what he's doing, what he's sacrificing to take care of his family. And we actually have a lot of ties to the other franchise as well. If you get a chance to look at the E3 demo, the full one, there's a lot of other characters that he interacts with back at the base. Even characters that return from the previous franchise. One of the guys that we have there is it's a character named Gale. In our game, he's obviously 25 years younger, and in the other game, he's the father of the main character of Lost Planet 1.
Well, this is cool. This is pretty creepy. This wouldn't look out of place in a Prometheus or something like that. But we're traveling through this abandoned facility of some sort here.
That's correct. This is a new discovery to Jim. Like I said, he didn't know that anything ever existed. He was actually trapped in that area when the ice melted. There was no way to get back that way, so he just had to press on. And you got another creature that wants to eat his face.
Now tell me about these QuickTime events here. You're trying to aim with the right analog stick to bash it off?
Yeah, it's we wanted to make sure that when we're doing these kind of moments, our game is still grounded as a shooter. It's all about aiming and pulling the trigger. So we didn't want to make typical QuickTime events where it's just pressing a sequence of buttons. We wanted to make sure that it's called what we call struggle mode. So the creature is on you and the reticle's kind of fighting you. Then you have to move your aiming cursor over him to stab him.
That was cool. So obviously getting more thermal energy from the kill. What all can you spend this thermal energy? I mean, you were kind of hinting at some like weapons and things. I mean, am I going to be able to like modify my weapons and customize things?
Yes, you'll be able to use it to buy all kinds of different weapons back at the base. You have different weapon upgrades and some other things as well. You can use thermal energy to buy parts that you need to upgrade your rig as well.
Oh, you can upgrade the rig, okay.
Yeah, it's kind of a big, it's like the Old West kind of like oil rush or something like that, or gold rush, right? Where everybody's kind of using these resources for almost bartering.
Yeah. So, I mean, these smaller scale creatures, that's definitely not something we've been seeing in Lost Planet. Or it's certainly not something I think of as being a Lost Planet, but you're making a pretty convincing case here. Some great lighting, too.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. What engine are you guys using for this?
This is UE3.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
The previous games were done on the MT Framework engine, which was it's Capcom's internal stuff. Spark as a developer, we are very familiar with Unreal Tech, and so we got the go-ahead to use the Unreal 3 engine.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, using it to great effect here. Obviously fighting our way through this facility, whatever this place is. Kind of interested to know what the story is here.
I'll talk to you about that offline. I don't want to really reveal too much.
Excellent. So what are you most proud of as a game director that you've been able to nail in this game? Maybe a detail or a specific feature?
I think probably the thing that I'm most proud of is the rig combat. We took kind of a big risk whenever we were deciding to take this big thing and do first-person melee. Not a lot of games have done first-person melee exceedingly well. It's a tough thing to do because it doesn't reinforce the kind of scale or depth as well as you sometimes want it to. But I think we've done some really kind of cool things with it. If I had a second thing, it would be the story. Trying to return it into something that you really care about, a character you care about, and wanting to know more as you go through.
Yeah, that's, I mean, in some ways it's very familiar, and I think in other ways it's very different. It's like a kind of a fresh start for the series, I think, in some ways. What made you want to do a prequel, though? That's one question I've got. I mean, why not just pick up where Lost Planet 2 left off?
Well, we wanted to do a prequel because it was that thing about returning to the extreme conditions of the first game, right? And actually being able to go a little bit even more extreme. It was wanting to kind of return to that ice environment and tell a little bit more about how the people got there before anybody knew of Nevik, which is the corporation that's in the other 2 games. It's kind of this corporation that everybody comes to know as evil in those games. In this, it's just a group of people who's colonizing, right? So it's wanting to tell a little bit of a story that ties to the other games, but it's still also a really good jumping on point if you don't know anything about the other games.
A little bit more of a human story, it looks like here. A little bit more personal, a little more intimate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great stuff. So what do you guys, when can I get my hands on this? When is this game coming out?
The game is due out in early 2013.
Early 2013,
yeah.
Appropriate with the wintry theme there,
yeah,
keeping with
right.
the ice and snow. Very nice. So I think we're just about out of time.
All right.
Thank you for joining us. Stay tuned. Up next, we're going to have a live demo of a hot title coming to PS3, PS Vita from Drinkbox Studios. That's Guacamelee. We'll be back shortly.